Happy Friday and welcome to SJU Review Fridays. It's all in support of direct relief and Black Lives Matter. Links to support in the description below. Joe Starr is here with me.
Hello.
To talk about, ahead of season 2, Umbrella Academy. We're going to look back at season 1. So warning, we will be talking about spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen it yet, go binge that business because it's good. Spoiler alert to my opinion. Joe Starr, 2 questions for you. 1, had you read the comics ahead or after watching season 1?
I have never read the comics, actually. I have always heard wonderful things about them and that Gerard Way is a great comic writer. And I just, I'll be honest, I think I kind of looked at them and shame on me. I wrote them off as like Wes Anderson XMen based on just like the covers and just never jumped in.
You know what? It seems like I wouldn't want this, but I do now want a Wes Anderson X-Men. But I don't want much of it. I want maybe 15 minutes of it, and that's it.
Yeah. Someone made a YouTube video. Sorry, already derailed. I apologize. Someone made a I'll send it to you. Someone made like a Wes Anderson X-Men sketch.
Okay.
Like,
well, there was also like the Midnight Coterie.
That was SNL, but yeah, someone did like a straight up like dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and like Xavier narrating like Cyclops training and stuff, and I'll find it.
Well, it's actually apropos for part of my opinion about Umbrella Academy that you bring up the X-Men, and I'll tell you why. And this is why I wanted to clarify that we will definitely have spoilers in this, is because the thing that I think I like best about, there's a lot I like about this. It is visually beautiful. I mean, so well done in terms of the craftsmanship. This is an incredible cast, and they work really well together in an ensemble, but also individually. There's only really one character and it's not a main character that I thought was slightly miscast, and we can talk about that later. But everybody else I think works really well together. But what I love about the story, it's bonkers too. I think our colleague was just saying, should I watch this? And I said, well, they're raised by a chimpanzee and a robot. And then I sent him the dance sequence and I said, and there's this. So yeah. But what I really love about it fundamentally is that it's the Dark Phoenix storyline the way I would have liked to see done, which ultimately I think that the thing that they totally missed both times was the idea of, it's sort of like the metaphor and the idea of this suppression of power. I think there's something particularly relatable about that when it comes to feminine power and how she turns that all in on herself, and she becomes so small and she becomes so self-hating and she becomes so angry, but she hides all that anger behind her meekness. And then when it's unleashed, because it hasn't been nurtured and because it hasn't been developed and because people were too afraid of it to take the time, when it becomes unleashed, it is in fact very, very dangerous, and you become the architect of your own destruction in that way. So I think, plus it's fun.
I totally agree with you. I think, and while Vanya and Jean Grey's like trajectories aren't necessarily the same,
no, they're not,
at all. But the end, the destination is very similar, and I think your point is fantastic. And I think what Umbrella Academy, the show, has managed to understand that. Now 2 years / 20 years of 2 movies or 20 years of X-Men films, however you want to look at it, never understood is that it's not just about, oh, she shows up and she's a Firebird, or oh, she shows up and she ends the world. You have to care first. You have to care about her, and you have to feel her pain and her struggles. And I think Vanya, especially as your sort of entry character into this world, and because this world is also very much about like PTSD and trauma and severe father issues and neglect, and she's all of those things. And so she's not just helping you explore the superhero world, she's helping you like enter this world of like trauma so that you really understand it fundamentally. And so that's when you get your real Dark Phoenix payoff, is when you have all of those elements in play. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, 100%. And just to clarify, I don't think Jean and Vanya are
Oh yeah,
similar
no, no,
in
no,
their
no.
makeup. I just think that idea of all that suppressed power that
Yeah,
scares people, and then what happens when it comes out because people haven't really known how to manage it.
yeah.
And they don't believe that she can manage it, that she is capable of managing it or should be trusted to manage it. So there's something very deep about that culturally, I think. And I say all this, and if you've seen Umbrella Academy, you're like, but it's also like awesome fight scenes in a diner, and there's time travel, and again, a talking chimpanzee who you also ultimately, first of all, I think the effects works is great on Pogo, but also you care about him so much. And what I really appreciate about the storytelling here is that they do not back off from her doing the unforgivable, because I think for us as viewers, whether it's crazy or not, or just sort of says something about humanity, the fact that she kills literally everyone, like billions of people, I feel like you would get over if they just jumped her into the past and that's what she had done. But no, she killed Pogo. And so now we're going to have a freaking reckoning, ma'am.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Sorry, now I'm just really interested in exploring the Jean parallels, because I think they're like Jean Grey killed a billion people, and we went, but she's Jean, and I wonder had Chris Claremont first had her like murder Nightcrawler or something like that. Would that have been like a tougher like sin to forgive like for a reader?
yeah.
Necessarily, I think because I agree. I think the death of Pogo is really sort of like brutal and unforgiving, and I think it speaks really well to the balance of the show, which is these moments of like you were saying, you sent the dance sequence and the donut shop shootout and stuff like that. It's all these very like the show's so well balanced. It's all of these very fun and light moments, just completely balanced with like pain, basically.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's what, sorry, I think that's what a lot of times when people say dark humor, that this show actually captures the essence of dark humor, where it's
Yes.
humor is born of the pain, because I think particularly for anyone and most people have had trauma in their lives, a lot of the times the way you process it is you just learn to laugh about it, because what else are you going to do? And so they're in these really heightened circumstances, and then there's also just something to the left and surreal about the created world. Not something, a lot of things. There is this talking chimpanzee that we love. But Pogo, my point with this is that they are able to have these fun moments and these wild, surreal dancing moments. I mean, this is my favorite dancing in the last few years outside of Ex Machina, which is just perfection. But I think with Pogo in particular, it's amazing the journey that you take with this character. Because you start, like, I remember initially he would go off and I was very suspicious of Pogo. I just did not trust Pogo. And then I fell in love with Pogo and realized he and Mom, the robot, were the two stabilizing forces in their lives. These were the only beings that loved them truly unconditionally, the way that theoretically parents should, but rarely do. And largely it's because they were created beings. So they're able to be extraordinary in that way. And her total turn, the specificity of it being Pogo, of her willing to go that far and take him out and have total lack of forgiveness, was, I think, necessary. And it is the move that most creators aren't willing to make, because we will feel less about an amorphous mass than we do about that character that we have equally grown to love and that we have seen that you love.
Yeah. I think that carries not just with Vanya, but I think Klaus. If I want to talk about some of my standouts for the show, Robert Sheehan as Klaus is phenomenal. He's an absolute force, and he's what I think about Roth when you talk about that dark humor, because he's charming and sexy, but also macabre and sad and broken. And is able to do so much with sort of the charming facade. this is a guy who got dumped into Vietnam, suddenly, and has just this whole life of pain that he's been, covering with like pills and booze and, whatever. And he just plays that so well, that black humor. Like he is, I think a lot of it orbits around him and kind of lives or dies by him in a lot of moments.
So I think Klaus is he's like the Jonathan, I think, in the sense that he's like the beloved standout character, Jonathan from Queer Eye. He's like the beloved standout character who I think we've been talking about this before we start shooting. We may see a lot more of in season 2 as a result. I love Klaus, and I think Klaus also has a similar arc, only in the sense that he's also, and understandably, really afraid of his own power. I mean, it's creepy. But if he would just be willing to, which I think is what Reginald was trying to instill in him really poorly, if he would just be at peace with who he is and confront it and embrace it, then mostly they're working in his favor. They're all trying to help him. Like, we don't really see ghosts like menacing him, only just trying to give him a message like, hey man, these guys, let me tell you how to get them. They are his saviors if only he would see it. And I feel like there's something very human about that too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there's something, what's the, you don't hear what folks have to say until you're ready to hear what folks have to say. Because I mean, this whole show's like one big sort of therapy session in a lot of ways. Like, because everyone's very broken and fragile in some way on this show. And like his arc definitely represents that, and I think everyone's powers represent that too. What you're saying about the ghosts, it's never menacing or really horrible to him. It's always supposed to be in service of. But these are people who don't have that basic wire work in place to recognize things like that, to recognize when something is supposed to help or maybe when something's supposed to hurt. Like, it's all very crisscrossed for all of them.
Yeah, 100%. And what I was thinking about today is like they've been numbered in theoretically I think this is like we learn more about Reginald and his thinking and why he's done certain things. There's clearly more to know. But he numbered them in the order that, ostensibly speaking, they were most useful, right? But clearly, I think what he did was reverse it. He actually numbered them in the order that their powers were least flexible, right? Because brute strength is important, but brute strength actually only goes so far. It only works when you're in close contact, right? So there's limits to it. Throwing a knife, there's limits to it, but it stretches a little more. Convincing anyone to do anything you want, that's impressive. Klaus, when he understands what he can do, he can actually control incorporeal beings. Like, that's pretty amazing, And then you get all the way to Vanya, who is by far the most powerful of all of them, So I think there's something in that, almost with the psychology of making people work harder at it or think less. There's like a weird reverse psychology happening in the way he numbered them. Yeah.
And I think so. The interesting thing to me about the show is that on one hand, you have all of this, like the study about the relationship between the father and his foster children and just the numbers that he's done on them. And dealing with all this pain and trauma. And then on the other hand of the show, you have like the deconstruction, sort of more quirky end with the commission. Most of that's through 5. Is sort of told through his, the wacky time traveling and sort of the genre commentary and stuff like that. It feels almost a little Venture Brother-y at times. But I like all of it. And I think all of it balances really well. But I like that you have those two shows almost like rushing to slam into each other.
Totally. I mean, it's a great world building.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, look up the name of the woman that is the head of the commission, because I love her.
Kate Walsh.
Kate Walsh. I was
Thank
forgetting her name. Thank you
She's
very
great.
much, Ryan.
Really fun.
I love the commission, and I love the specificity of how much she enjoys bureaucracy. Like, but it's not in a Vogon kind of way. She almost like sexualizes bureaucracy. Like it turns
Yeah.
on, you know? Like
Nice Vogon drop, by the way.
I want to be in service to what my superiors need. I'm like, ooh.
Ooh, hello. And then there's a sort of a very like twisted juxtaposition between the fact that her direct relationship on the show is Five, who's an adult in a kid. But I also love Aiden. So Aiden Gallagher's my other standout, the kid that plays Five, because I think there's something very meta about probably just letting a child actor just completely play themselves, because they're all weird little 100-year-old people. Like, child actors aren't actually children.
It's so true.
So, this is probably literally just him playing himself when he was 9 in real life.
It's so true.
And just the mannequin bit.
Dolores.
I think it's Dolores.
Dolores, I think. We'll look it up.
Yes. Check that for us, because I definitely don't want to get Dolores wrong.
Am I checking?
The name of the mannequin that a character falls in love with.
Copy. I think it is Dolores, but I will double check.
I love... it reminded me of one of the best live comedy things I've ever seen was when I was in college. This trio of people in my department that were upperclassmen that I really looked up to put together their own little like clown show. And they did a thing called like Punch Theater, and they did a show that was it was called you just got a program that said 3 grave diggers enter a cemetery by night to do some dirty work, and then it just devolves into them turning on each other and doing weird stuff, and then they blame one of them dies, they blame a bucket the other was carrying on the other one dying, and basically they put the bucket on trial, and then they kill the bucket, and then they feel remorse about the bucket. And so just the clown work of him working with this mannequin, and the whole show just very much treating Dolores as if she's like a living, breathing character, like you care about her. I just love that stuff. That kind of thing's right up my alley.
100% for me too. And I think the other thing that is because by the time the show ends, I actually care about Dolores. And she also represents the inevitability of what's going to happen, because he takes her away and then places her back. So clearly this time loop has happened already, where he's come back. And he's also been, he's another one where it's like this lesson on power, where he has misused his power. He's used it before he didn't listen, and he has misused it, and he jumped ahead of himself, quite literally. And he paid such a price for it, such an incredible price for it with all those years. And Dolores was so real to him that she became so real to us. And then she returns right back to this position where he found her, which confirms this idea of a time loop. I love time travel. I love how you can play with what relationship means to people, because he's carrying all that weight, to your point, of being an adult in this little kid's body, which sounds great, but probably sucks. To relive your life and what you know now. Like, we all fantasize, like, oh, if only I could make better choices. Knowing what I know now, I would be, I don't know, Bill Gates, but I wouldn't be. I would probably be right back here. You know what I mean?
I love to. There's almost like like just listening to you sort of talk about him. I was kind of like, is there almost a meta of? It's probably not intended by the show, but it's art, and we get to read whatever we want into it. Dang it! Like, using his not listening and like using his powers in a big way before he's necessarily ready ties back maybe to being like a kid actor or a kid singer or something like that, and doing these great big things that you're maybe not necessarily prepared for, and then there being consequences for you as a result, like in your life.
Yeah, and I think, anybody that's been around sets that have child actors, what Joe is saying is so true. They're eerily adult. They're too adult. I don't.
They are the kid from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the little girl that talks to Leo.
Yeah, exactly. They are exactly that. They are 100%. They're usually really, really professional because they usually have their parents over them and kind of like instilling this professionalism on set. But it always really makes me sad because you get this pocket of time to be a kid, and that's all you get, and after that, it's just more complicated forever, So I always just hate to see them lose that pocket. But hey, no judgment if your kid's a child actor. So anyhow, time travel is one of my favorite things. I think it's really fun. I think it just opens up doors to opening up easy doors in storytelling to looking at the same event from a different perspective. It opens up doors in storytelling to you and I have known each other and then we spread apart, and the amount of time that has passed for each of us is different, which is just interesting for the relationship. But also I think like the way that we live our lives, you and I could spend time apart. And depending on what happened in our lives, it could very much feel that way, even if the same amount of time literally had happened. So there's just a ton that I think there's a ton that's fun about it. And this show plays, I think it surprises you, it knows when to surprise you, like with the ice cream truck, it knows when to, in the bowling alley. I have a question about the bowling alley.
Ask.
Thank you. And I think this is wrong, but the actress who plays the kid's mom, who's having the birthday party, looks so similar to the actress that was on the bus with Klaus when he runs out of he escapes the hotel and he has the briefcase and he's on the bus and he looks at this lady and she's wearing a hat. And then he opens the briefcase and the hat blows off and she puts it back on. They look so similar. Is that the same actress or no?
I'm just gonna make it that it is. I think that is correct now because I like that idea. I like the idea for being just like a weird non-combatant commission member or something. Yeah. So I'm very into it. I don't think it's the same actress, but
I think probably not.
It is now.
It is now. Hey, we're going to take some comments. Ryan's going to let us know what you guys are saying in the comments. And then we're going to talk about this soundtrack because it's made a Tiffany fan out of Ryan.
Heck yeah.
Ryan, what are they saying? Ryan doesn't want to talk to us today.
We lost our boy.
We lost him.
Sorry, guys. My Zoom is taking a long time to catch up. Sorry, 1 second. My internet's bad.
No worries. Well, I'll talk for a second about my other standout, which is ChaCha, played by Cameron Britton. He might be one of my favorite actors right now. Have you seen Mindhunter?
No.
At all? So he plays, sorry, names are all leaving me because time and reality don't matter anymore. I'd never leave this chair. But he plays one of the key serial killers that they're interviewing throughout the process in Mindhunter. He's horrifying. He's so scary throughout that show. He's very calm and still, but then at the same time, you're like, this is a guy who any minute now could just reach out and just like snap your neck or just physically have his way with you however he needs. He's a very scary presence on Mindhunter. And then you switch to ChaCha in the Umbrella Academy. Just this maybe that's what he was supposed to be at one point in his career, but now he's just sort of sad and over it, and he just wants to run away with a donut shop lady. And he's so endearing. There's just something about his voice and his sort of world-weary delivery that I absolutely love. And he's one of those actors who's like, okay, I've got two things really going for me. My size, because I'm a big dude, and my very interesting voice. And the way between those two roles, he shifts them to be two completely different characters. I just love. He's one of my favorite actors working right now.
Yeah, I will say I genuinely think the entire cast is fantastic, and in different ways. Sheila McCarthy is the person that plays Agnes. Who I think, again, the show has a way of introducing characters and you think they're going to behave in a certain way. And they surprise you. So she's set up to be kind of a caricature to some degree, I think. But she there's something very real about the way she's willing to compromise around ethics, in order to be happy, because you get the sense that she has, and loved, because you get the sense that she has lived for so many years unhappy, unseen, unloved, that here comes this person, he's willing to do all of those things, and he's what he is, he's an assassin, and she's willing to accept it because that's how hungry she is to have that in her life. And there's just something incredibly real about that for me. I love her. I really think everyone, John Magaro plays Leonard/Harold. This is another character that ostensibly, especially in kind of comic book storylines, is a trope, right? Like, we've seen the character that wanted to have superpowers and didn't have superpowers before, but he's able to bring a level of humanity to that, and menace. But more the vulnerability is what I'm impressed with.
Yeah, I think there's something just really well done about the characters across the board. One thing I really enjoy about this show that I'm actually sort of really taking notice with another show I'm working on for Screen Junkies and fandom purposes, which is Airbender. They do a very good job of taking those expectationally like tropey characters, like you're saying, and just giving them that one extra, maybe two extra sometimes, twists that just really like help them like skyrocket and soar. So I think you're right on the money about that. It's just one of the reasons why this elevates over a lot of other TV, even other, sort of streaming event TV. I've also got our chat comments ready to go. At Deli Tansel says Hazel and ChaCha were the ultimate duo. I love the interplay between them. I think now we have to talk about how good Mary J. Blige was.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, it's like the fact that I think what she carries with her too is the fact that she's Mary J. Blige. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like,
in a very unconventional role for her. I didn't even recognize her as Mary J. Blige just because I didn't expect her as like a Man in Black character.
Yeah, and what's cool about her too is that I don't know if you've ever seen The Americans, but she's sort of like the Elizabeth character in the sense that like she's committed to it. Like, I don't necessarily think she's like Elizabeth Jennings is a believer in the cause. Yeah. I don't think she's a big believer, but she's committed to it.
Yes.
In a way that is consistent throughout. And I think really she's just so good, and she's such a good counter to Hazel.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think she's like a true believer in the commission. I think she's a believer in if she gets her numbers the way she needs them to be. She gets a raise. She gets, she's a believer in the system, not necessarily like, But I think that almost makes her like scarier. Someone who's like, no, I'm not like emotionally committed to this, but I am economically committed to this.
Yeah, and I think even like, I think Kate Walsh's character they haven't gone the way of this person is doing this because they believe it's a moral imperative at all. It's not she is the handler. Like, she doesn't believe it's a moral imperative.
Right.
She enjoys it. She enjoys the structure. She enjoys the structure of bureaucracy and management, and
like a salesperson who just enjoys sales. Yeah. Like whether it's a car or a pen or whatever, they just enjoy sales.
It's also like, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, which I was just gonna say, which kind of makes them scarier in a lot of ways.
Totally, because why would you like that? It's miserable. But she also, in a sense, is this person who I always think it's interesting. Like, the idea of time cops are interesting to me. Like, that there's enough non-cops traveling around in time that they have to be there to manage it is always kind of an interesting storyline, and that they want to maintain the timeline. Like, I love the idea of that is so closely tied to the idea of bureaucracy, that they want to maintain the status quo, and the wild cards, like the creatives or the disruptors come in and they want to break the status quo and change it. But that is very, very, very hard to do because Five keeps trying to do it, and it just chasing him. It looks like it's chasing him back in time.
And that sequence, by the way, too, when his attack on the commission is phenomenal. I'm really just tossing grenades left and right.
Yeah.
At Frank Clark asked, and this takes us a little on a side route, but that's okay. Phantom Entertainment. Hey, with all these crazy comic book shows coming out like Doom Patrol, UA, and Happy, which is the best? Legion is their personal favorite. So I have not seen Doom Patrol. My understanding is that it is quirky and bizarre and weird and screwed up and delightful in all the best ways. I just haven't seen it yet. I know you and I are big fans of Legion.
Yeah, I love Legion.
I don't think we've talked about the end of it, which... Have we talked about the third season of Legion together? Because I think you finished it and I hadn't finished it yet.
Yeah.
I guess in service of reviewing Umbrella Academy, I think a key difference between the two for me is I think Umbrella Academy's weird is maybe better focused in service of the story it's telling, and then sometimes Legion was very interested in just being weird to the point that maybe sometimes its narrative stumbled over it a little bit. If that's the meanest thing I can say about Legion, so be it. I really like that show and the cast. But yeah, I'll say that. I think Umbrella Academy, I thought, knew exactly how many like oddball cards to play, where to play them, and how many, and when to pull back.
Yeah. I think for me, it's also like a tonal difference. Legion also had some great dance sequences, frankly, and musical numbers. And it's like Legion leans, Umbrella Academy is world building, right? You're getting introduced to a world that is unfamiliar to you and new. However, there's a logic to it, right? Like there's a structure to it. But with Legion, it's you're in the perspective of someone who doubts his own perspective. He doubts his own ability to process logic and process reality. He questions his reality all the time.
Yeah, he's an unreliable narrator.
An unreliable narrator, 100%. And so because of that, I think that you're put in that perspective more in Legion, where you're left to wonder, is this real? Is it not? It feels all the way into like Dolly surreal, and it's not just sort of like quirky and odd, Yeah. But I do think it's in the service of who Legion is as a character.
I think that's a very good point. It maybe not so much like plot and story, but in service of who David Haller is, it's interesting actually that the point of entry for that show is less about stuff and more about perception.
His mind. Yeah, 100%. It's about his mind.
I have a tough question for you.
Huh?
I have a tough question for you.
Uh-oh.
At Darcy Jones asks, "Hey Roth, which actor character did you specifically think was miscast?"
Yeah. Okay. And here I'll say it, but understand that I don't think it's her fault. She's a good actress, actually, and I don't necessarily think. And this is going to sound really granular, but I don't necessarily think she was miscast. I think she was misdressed. And it's like, to me, this speaks to how important every detail really is. And what drove me nuts is that every detail is so closely and I think really well monitored and seen to and thought out in Umbrella Academy. But one character is Detective Eudora Patch, played by Ashley Madakwi. And if I'm mispronouncing that, please forgive me. But I think she gives a fine performance. But her outfits look like wardrobe to me. It totally threw me out every single time. The leather jacket was too crisp. The cut was too well. Her hair was too perfect. Her makeup looked too good. The folds of the t-shirt into the jeans, into the skinny jeans, or they wear slacks, was too precise for me to believe that she was a detective. And I needed her to be messier. And I needed
a detective from a different show almost.
Interestingly enough, she is an original character. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. She is an original character, not from the comics.
Yes. Yeah. So they made her for the show before he had a like very Gordon-esque gruff detective guy who was helping him out named Inspector Ludo. And so the show, she is a completely original character for the show that's not based off a comic character.
Well, and perhaps it's like Diego needed something and he needed a little more to his arc. And he, you know what I mean? Like perhaps there's a number of reasons that character, I don't mind having that character in the show. It's not her presence and her role in the show that bothers me. It's literally her wardrobe. Her wardrobe bothers me to a level that it throws me out every time she's on screen because she just needed to look like she didn't dress that well.
Yeah, she does. She does look maybe more like a detective character on like Arrow,
or on like on Arrow or like CSI, where part of the idea is that they look a little bit glamorous, and it's okay because it fits in with the rest of the show. But if you look at how Vanya is dressed, for example, as opposed to her sister, they look like how they should look in terms of who they are. You know what I mean? Every other character, Klaus, every other character on the show, their wardrobe is born of who they are as people. And for her, I just was like, that just got steamed literally 1 second ago and put on you. Like it just does not look lived in at all. I know that's really weird. I don't blame her for it. I really blame wardrobe. Wardrobe? Damn
What are you doing? What are you doing? No, I do think it's interesting that the one character that was created for the show was the one that had something that was like sticking out for you. I think that's really interesting. Without realizing that it was the character that was created for the show, is really interesting to me. Trying to think of really standout stuff for me. The Istanbul sequence is. Oh, we gotta talk needle drops. This is a real good soundtrack.
Oh my God. Yeah, we haven't talked about the soundtrack yet, which is an amazing soundtrack. And we were talking about it before the show. I don't know if I don't think, although I don't know if he had anything to do with the soundtrack. Do you guys know? Jared Way, My Chemical Romance. Did he have anything to do with it?
Gerard, did you do the soundtrack?
Gerard, sorry.
I just don't want the romance heads coming for you.
Well, I'm not a romance head. I'll make a confession right now. I'm not. So, but
the Black Parade's coming for you, Roth.
What I liked about it was that it was like counterintuitive. So like when they're doing the dance sequence, it's to this really cheesy 80s song, this 80s pop song by Tiffany, right? Like it's not cool at all. And they can't dance except for Diego. Like they are bad.
Yeah.
All of them are really bad and it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I love that all of that in that sequence, the campy old pop song that shouldn't fit, the fact that they're terrible at this, like it's all that just sort of sad Arrested Development built up at them. Like it's all in service of those characters and trying to really express just sort of like how much they've lost. And to the point where, you know, do they even have like the developmental skills to reclaim any of it? I just, that song choice for the dance is just absolutely like perfect.
And then it's played by the person initially that is having the most trouble letting go of the past, and letting go of what they once were is also really appropriate. But also the fact that, like, to your point, kind of like that meta reflection on child actors and kids being made to work and made into celebrities before they ought to be. They didn't get a chance to be kids, and here they're having this little moment, right, where they're getting to. You know, I don't know how you danced when you were a little kid, but I danced unabashedly and terribly.
Similar to how I do now, yeah.
So there's just something really just weird and quirky, but it also makes sense to your earlier point. Like it tracks, it's in service of something. Don't come for me, chemical heads.
Don't come for this woman. The soundtrack is phenomenal, and yeah, I just love this whole sense of stolen childhood for all of these characters. Because, you know, obviously there's a lot of XMen. You know what? I don't think it's fair to call them XMen riffs in Umbrella Academy, because I think a lot of creators like do their XMen or whatever, but they do their take, and that's about as deep as it gets. I think Gerard Way really had something to say about the idea of a weird, mysterious man gathering a child army
Yeah, never a good idea.
Putting them in, yeah, it really is never. But then like putting them in uniforms and putting them in front of the world and being like, behold, my X-Men.
I think it's the same thing in Star Wars. Like, why are you collecting these children?
Yeah, completely
just go collect special children. Just let them be special children somewhere else.
Yeah, like let them discover Lego on their own and just have fun. Because he really did create this like weird Xavier / Magneto, like by the way of Jules Verne sort of character. What I was thinking about when I watched the show, because sort of around the same time, Cyclops in the X-Men comics broke bad and sort of became this very militant, definitely went more the way of Magneto than Xavier, and was basically like, to save my people, I'll declare war on the planet. I don't care, like screw humanity. And it was received. I think it was a very controversial decision. But I think it's the one that makes sense. And I think that's what Umbrella Academy really has to say, is that it's like, look what you did to this kid when he was 14. He just wanted to be a 14-year-old, and you made him fight a magnet man. Like, of course he's broken. Like, you sent your strong kid to the moon. Like, he's never coming back from that. And, like, yes, there were reasons you did it, Wow. Okay. Do we have another hour? Because obviously, like with Hargraves, with abusive people like that, there's always a reason. There's always a sliver of good. And I think in pop culture we really romanticize that sometimes, where it's like, oh, but there was a method to his madness. He wanted to slow the spread of your power, or he had to save your life, or he wanted to protect you from yourself. But like, they were still abusive.
Yeah, two quick things on that, and then I know we got to wrap it up, so I want to hear what the final comments are. But I think it's just this play on the greater good, right? And this notion of the greater good, which is there's always this tension between the good of the individual versus the greater good, right? Particularly in stories like that. And the idea of sacrifice is very romanticized. And they didn't choose to sacrifice. He chose to sacrifice them. He said, you are here to save the world. And therefore, I'm going to do everything I can in order to construct a reality in which you're available and able and strong enough to save the world. I mean, it's sort of like the Sarah Connor, with her son. But at the same time, obviously, there's, as we've talked about in several different occasions in the story, you're perpetuating that destiny. You're creating it. You're creating the very creature that is going to destroy the world, and thus
putting the mannequin back.
Yeah. So you are the architect of not only your own destruction in this case, but their destruction, and as a result, the world's destruction. So stop playing up. That's one thing. But the second thing is, I don't always think abusers have a reason. I think sometimes.
No, you're fair. I think in media.
In the media and stories like this, like Magneto, and it does make a more interesting villain. They may have a cause. In other words, they may be very damaged themselves, or they may be really broken themselves, too broken, or ill, but not like a greater good reason always, I don't think.
Yeah. I think it's more. It's like in like pop culture, like characters like that. We always, Xavier's always the greater good. Like, look at all the things. Like he knew all these things were coming. This and that. But he still, dressed these kids up in spandex and exposed them to the world.
And made them go fight.
Made them go fight. So Frank Clark had a soundtrack clarification for us based on our question. Gerard Way and Ray Toro did a cover of Hazy Shade of Winter for the trailer, and then that played over the season finale credits.
Now that's in my head.
Roth, we come to the end of this review. How do you rate? I rate this 5 out of 5 eyeshadow palettes for Klaus. That's my rating for Umbrella.
That's a really high rating.
It's pretty high rating.
Joe, I just don't do them. I just refuse. I spent a number of years as a critic and reviewer for outlets in which I was forced to do the reductive score, and I always hated it because that was the one thing people would focus on, and it's the least interesting part of talking about anything.
Well, one, I give you 5 out of 5 Klaus eyeshadow palettes for making that hard decision, which I appreciate. And then also, we also just wanted to shout out Adam Holbert in chat. Hi. Hey, man. He's in chat all the time. He worked on the show.
Ooh, you have a good job.
Visual effects on the show. Well done making your show look so good, because it looked really fantastic.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Did he work on Pogo?
I know he did. I think he did visual. Adam, I think you did visual effects. I don't know if he pogoed or not. But that also thought this show had a TV budget. Yes, it had like a Netflix TV budget, which was probably pretty elevated. But like the amount of bang they got for their buck in this show, I thought was.
It looks amazing. So thanks for watching us. And I hope that I didn't offend any of the chemical heads or yourself, because you did amazing work on the show. We really love it, as you can see. And I'm just going to go prove that it's okay by identifying an elephant. Just kidding. Moving on. Good to see you all here today. I love all of you so much. And we will see you here on Monday, right, Joe?
Yeah, we'll probably still be here unless like just the weekend goes badly.
Well, we're there. You know what? The aliens are out. 2020 continues to rock on. So no promises, but we'll do our best.
Let's get at them aliens. Bye,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you, Roth.